Showdown in Gotham, whose side are you on? What's good, guys? Welcome back to the First Take. I'm Ed Reese, and we're now days away from the final release of Batman v Superman. So I figured, I saw these Comicstorian prequel comic books they narrated for Batman v Superman, so I figured let's get into that right before the film drops and let's see how the characters got to the point they're at when the film begins. Now there's a bunch of these, but they're all pretty short, so rather than do individual ones that you'd all have to click on each video, you know, that clickbait shit, I'll just put them all together, man. So who should we start with? Oh, there's Lois Lane. Let's start with the smaller characters. Let's start with Senator Finch and then work our way up to Batman and Superman. Let's get the 40 minutes.
How does the government feel about the destruction of Metropolis in Man of Steel? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. This is the last of the Batman v Superman comics that I was able to find. These are a part of a Dr. Pepper promotion, and I'll link it down below. Each of these stories contains small insights into the world of Batman v Superman. I hope you enjoy. It only took 8 minutes for the Kryptonians to move the loss of life into the 5 figures. Full skyscrapers of people landing in the rubble, and regardless of the military response, the Kryptonian was able to destroy their aircrafts and kill the pilots. It took the Kryptonian only half an hour to level the entire city and kill everyone. The entire scenario is a demonstration as to what could happen by the US government. The general explains that while this didn't happen, it could very quickly. One of the gentlemen there asks the question though, if we build a committee to study Superman, aren't we treating our greatest ally as an enemy? He stopped countless wildfires from claiming lives alone. Senator Finch asks the question, has anyone gone to Superman to simply ask for his help? The general informs the senator that they did not, because it was considered too large of a risk to even try. While he has helped out in countless events, he still isn't a human being. Therefore, they can't make assumptions about him. If they ask him for help, they could be making him aware that committees like the one they are all sitting on exist. The general continues, while they do assume that he is loyal to Earth, our doctors have raised a good number of questions. Is he susceptible to mental illness, PTSD, dementia? We've had no chance to study a Kryptonian long term. The senator asks him if they've considered his effect on the geopolitical stage, and the general further explains that Superman has avoided any conflicts between countries, which raises the question, how long will it last? What if he picks a side? What if he's trying to save a few lives and someone like the paranoid regime of North Korea discovers him in their area? What would they do? One of the men on the committee defends Superman though. All I keep hearing is what he could do, but no one is mentioning what he has done. He defended Earth and saved lives. I still say we ask for his cooperation. Another man has a concern though. What if he finds out we're spying on him? There would be no coming back from that. The very fact that you are worried about hurting his feelings is proof of how dangerous he is. The senator tells everyone to stop arguing. She explains that she has no dog in this fight and is grateful for what Superman has done, the many lives that he has saved. She believes Superman means well, that's pretty clear, but we've all heard the expression of where good intentions can lead. There are message boards online of people asking for Superman's help, anything ranging from rent payments to curing cancer. At the same time, there is a threat of a rising militia that believes Superman is the advanced scout for a future larger invasion. The reaction to Superman is as much of an issue as the man himself. The fact is, they don't know anything about him. So they put it to vote, should they fund a study of Superman? And all of the individuals on the committee agree. It's time to learn more about the Man of Steel.
Okay, that's interesting, man. The Red Militia. Do you think those are who those Superman, the soldiers that we saw with like the Superman insignia on the arm are? Are they that militia that they're speaking of? Oh, that puts up a few interesting questions there. And it actually puts forward something which I've never really taken into consideration before. If something like Superman, or someone like Superman did suddenly come to exist, they brought up something which I'd never considered, and that is, you don't know how his brain works. Is he susceptible to mental illness, dementia, like they said? And if someone who has godlike powers suddenly got Alzheimer's or something, that could be insane. Like, they could do shit without knowing they're doing it. They could have night terrors where they wake up and the laser heat vision just blows outside the buildings. Like, you don't know, stuff like that. You don't really think that you have to take that in consideration, but when you really think about it, that could be kind of worrying. Let's jump into the next one, man. Lois Lane.
Lois Lane and Clark Kent are walking through the Daily Planet newsroom. Clark is about to head off to cover the floods of Bangladesh, while Lois is off to expose the corruption, speaking truth to power. She walks across town and Mr. Hanford's security invites her up to his office, where he opens a drawer and places his hand on a pistol. She thanks him for taking the time, and he responds by telling her, of course, he would like to see her. He can't let these accusations go unanswered. They pride themselves on being good corporate citizens of Metropolis. The notion that they would try to profit illegally, no less from an alien attack that could cost many people their lives, is frankly offensive. Lois reaches into her bag, which is why I wanted to give you a moment to respond to these accusations. This is a copy of the original form filled out by the foreman of the crew evacuating the site of your collapsed headquarters. As required by the Department of Homeland Security, it outlines 8 pieces of Kryptonian technology removed from the rubble. Mr. Hanford is stunned. Where did you get that? That's not the question, Mr. Hanford. The real question is, why does the one filed by your office only report 5 pieces of Kryptonian technology? And after this, why were those missing pieces discovered for sale on Darknet by a user that told me he was working for you? That's ridiculous. If some cyber criminal is trying to throw me under, he gave me a sworn and notarized statement after I showed him the photos of what Kryptonian tech did to the human beings during the attack. And the Swiss account number that paid him also belongs to the account that you used to book a trip to Kenya during your black rhino hunt. Mr. Hanford rubs his forehead with his hands, and then he grabs the pistol and pulls it out, pointing it at Lois. Okay, that's a really bad idea. Oh, because it seems like the only option that you've left me. Let's not get stupid, Mr. Hanford. All of my evidence is with my editor, Perry White, and he knows I'm here. I also told Homeland Security, and they are in the process of freezing your assets, revoking your passport, and alerting every airport, seaport, and border checkpoint. Then they both hear some police sirens as they grow closer to the office. You can go down living your life in a Supermax facility, or possibly the death penalty for treason and murder. Or I could not mention this little lapse of judgment on your part if you gave me the identity of your buyers for a reduced sentence. I can tell your side of the story, trying to save a business and all of the people who have jobs here. That's what I was doing! Mr. Hanford stood there and he debated it. He really didn't have any other options. But then he noticed the sirens were leaving and he realized they weren't coming to arrest him. Lois jumped at him, hitting him over the head and taking his gun. Those police officers weren't for you, but I did alert Homeland Security. I will print your story as well, but I will also mention that you had multiple personal assets that you could have used that you didn't want to take the risk of losing. Then Lois called up Perry to tell him that she's fine, and everything went according to plan. A week later, Lex Luthor stood outside of Hanford Technologies. He just bought it, and he intends to keep everyone employed at the company. He doesn't understand why Hanford would want to sell Kryptonian tech when there are so many other things you could do with it.
That's an interesting conclusion there, because at first I would have thought, when it said that he was selling Kryptonian tech on the Darknet, I would have presumed it was Lex that was buying it, and that was how he got hold of the kryptonite. But then you see at the end, where when he bought the company, like I said, he doesn't understand why they would sell it. Why wouldn't they keep it and use it for, So, that puts up some interesting questions there. I guess that kind of further establishes Lois as this gutsy, tough girl who's willing to go as far as she needs to in order to get the story. But that ended with Lex, so let's jump straight into Lex's story.
Lex stands before the crumbled ruins of the LexCorp building. This was supposed to be my crowning achievement. A perfect marriage of architect and technology. The biggest, grandest, most highly advanced structure in all of Metropolis. But after the alien attack, I had to tear those plans up, and I'm glad. Lex is actually standing in front of countless reporters to announce that he's going to rebuild the building into something massive. A skyscraper for the heavens. As he cuts the ribbon, he explains that Metropolis isn't a disaster area or a financial risk. It's his home. He then hands back the giant scissors and tells the reporters that he has a full plate, but will take a couple of questions on the way to the car. The first question is, what will Lex do if the city doesn't come back? It'll be disastrous for his bottom line. Lex sneers at them. Wrong, Neil. A disaster is a tragic loss of thousands of people in a single day. But there were heroes there too. Rescue workers, first responders, our men and women in uniform, and countless ordinary civilians. They put their lives on the line, so my money is the least I can do. It only bothers me that more people don't feel that way. Another reporter jumps in on that line. Actually, since word got out, local politicians and media personalities are calling companies that left Metropolis traitors. A growing number are returning or expanding their existing operations. I wouldn't be surprised, Mr. Luthor, if you couldn't sell all of the land you acquired for a higher rate. Then Lex gets into his car. There you have it, Lex Luthor. You are as much a hero to Metropolis as Superman. No, not like him. You don't want to be compared to Superman? He saved a runaway train, hundreds of lives. Are you saying that you're among those that don't believe he's the hero that he appears to be? The truth is, Ken, I don't feel I have enough information on Superman to comment. I don't think anyone does. I think it's important that we recognize the ordinary civilians of Metropolis. He then closes the window and he drives away. His assistant tells him that he did a great job handling those gotcha questions. Nothing I can't handle. I told the truth. What do we know about Superman? He can fly and shoot lasers from his eyes, but everyone cheers when he saves a cat out of a tree. He loves easy jobs like runaway trains and wildfires and earthquakes, but avoids the messy political stuff. Isn't it a little convenient for you? I don't know enough about Superman. No one does. But I will find out.
So it looks like they're sticking to... There's a base... Like, at Lex Luthor's core, he's actually not really a bad guy, even though he does a lot of bad things. At his core, it's actually a pretty reasonable argument. Like, his hatred for Superman is more about distrust or just ignorance to who Superman or what Superman is. He's a human being and he wants to secure the safety of the rest of the human race. Like, he just doesn't trust that Superman is there for mankind's benefit, which, when you really think about it, isn't really a bad place to start, but he does kind of get out of control as he does his various fucked up things along the way. But so it's actually interesting to see that they're sticking to that.
A train was picking up speed at an alarming rate, and the conductor knows his train is about to derail. It's the end of his life and everyone on board, until he sees a red blur that is Superman coming to the rescue. Now, you need to take into consideration the things that Superman needed to think about in a hurry to save those people. Sure, he is strong and he could use his brute strength, but he would be causing the very thing that he was attempting to avoid. First, he had to sever the connection between the rear power car and the ones in front of it. Then he needed to get the power car out of the way, which was easy since it doesn't have any passengers, so he threw it off the tracks. Next, he was cutting the couplings connecting the passenger cars, and he had to ensure that each of them had enough space so they wouldn't smash into each other. After all of this, Superman realized that he was too slow, and the end of the track was coming. It was going to derail regardless. So his second plan was to slow the train down, but he can't use all of his strength for fear of once again derailing the train. He needed to use a proper amount of force to slow it down, but even that wasn't enough, and he wasn't going to be able to stop it. So he lifted the entire train off of the tracks and moved it to a flat space on the ground, where next he moved the injured out quickly, but slow enough not to injure them further. He then brought them to the EMTs. This is actually a few individuals recapping what happened, because they are debating who Superman is to the world on national television. One side is arguing that while he did act heroically, having godlike powers does not in fact make you a god. But looking at the bigger picture, should anyone have that kind of power? Presumably he can't be everywhere at once, so he needs to decide who he's going to save. How does he make the decisions as to who lives and who dies? The gentleman in the black suit counters. If you are referring to the Battle of Metropolis, Superman did everything that he could. I'm not convinced that he did, and I wasn't talking about the Battle of Metropolis. I've been to war, I've seen countries torn apart, and the civilians are stuck in the middle. But Superman doesn't get involved in wars. Why not? I actually agree with Superman's decision. Intervening in political disputes could make the situation worse. Surely you're not suggesting that he attempt to unilaterally disarm the country's militaries. Well, if he decided to, who could stop him? But I'm not saying that he should get involved. But why not save the civilians that are involved? And take them where? The world is already dealing with a refugee crisis. But what do we do when Superman has had enough? There is one man watching this broadcast that we all need to be worried about, because Lex Luthor agrees with that. As a matter of fact, he's counting on everything getting more complicated real soon.
That was an interesting one. That was actually an interesting discussion there that those people were having at the end. And it's actually what's that? It's actually reminded me of these two comic book series that kind of broach that scenario, like what if Superman became fed up. One's called The Mighty. It's about a superhero who becomes, I don't really want to say too much, but it's basically about a superhero who has Superman level powers. It's the same sort of equivalent. It's like a Superman analog, but it kind of deals with what happens if that person wasn't good, or they chose to be more of a dictator, the way they kind of deal with their powers. And there's another one called I think it's called Irredeemable, there's two. There's like one from the superhero perspective and one from like the regular guys who are trying to stop him. But I think Irredeemable's the one, but that might be the other one. I might be getting it mixed up. But that's another one, the same thing. But it actually goes more into the person starting as a good, honest hero like Superman, but then just getting to the point where they're just fed up. I can't take this. No one's appreciative of what I'm doing for them, and then they're saying, "Fuck it, I'm fuck all of you." And they're amazing. Both of them are amazing stories. You really should. Alright, man, let's get to the last one. Batman.
In Gotham City, it all needs to burn. Nothing left, just ashes. Firefly is setting up various charges with two henchmen along his side. And one of the henchmen tells Firefly they need to leave. They were only supposed to torch the merch, but if they stay here any longer, the Bat will arrive. But Firefly slams him against a wall. It takes a professional to do it right. He lets the man go and the other henchman explains. You need to calm down, follow orders and shut up. As for the Batman, rushing won't help if he's onto us, but at least you'll end up alive. If you talk back to Firefly, you won't even get that. I know, but I heard he's gotten brutal, hard. You're right. I was your age when he first showed up. Back when it was all about finesse. Half the time you wouldn't even see him. One minute you're on the job and the next it's over. But that was then. And now, well, he's changed. You know Pete Dominion, right? The B&E guy? He had a job a few months ago and everything was going smooth until the Batman arrived. Then it all went to hell. Pete pointed his gun at him, but he didn't have a chance to pull the trigger. He looked into the Bat's eyes and it froze him. And then Batman broke his knee. He wasn't always like that. He was tough, but you could tell that he's seen things now. It was after the Metropolis thing with that Superman guy that things got bad. Why? He wasn't even there. As far as we know, the world's a rough place, but you work hard enough, harder than anyone else, and you think you can handle it. Then some aliens drop out of the sky and level a city with their bare hands? What does that do to a man like him? Firefly walks back over and excuses his henchmen before getting ready to blow the facility. But that's when a Batarang comes in to stop him. Batman swings in ready to fight, and Firefly tries to light him on fire, telling him that he can light this whole place up. He has armor and a respirator. Can you survive if I suck out all the oxygen, Batman? And Batman pops on his own mask. Yes. Batman hits Firefly so hard that he cracks his mask, and then he tears his armor off of him. This is Gotham. Not here. Never here. He kicks Firefly into the wall hard. Then he turns to the henchmen. The police show up later and they comment on how badly Batman beat them, and they feel sorry for whoever he set his sights on next.
So they really seem to be establishing Batman having this... What's the name of that condition? Is it like a post-traumatic disorder type thing? Even though he was there. We've seen in the trailers when he's running towards his building as it collapses. So he's definitely someone who's suffering and who believes that not again, it's never going to happen again. So he's really overcompensating for that. I guess overcompensating for the fact that he feels powerless, like they were saying. Like, what can you do when you're used to having this sort of level of control over people, over the criminals of Gotham, or so you believe? But then these near like god beings come and with their hands destroy a city. I guess that's a similar thing as kind of Lex must be dealing with, because he has all this money, all this respect and power within that business world, but then these beings come from another world, and like, what does that do to that psyche? Like, you're not all that anymore. You're not that special. Yesterday's news. So I really cannot wait. The world premiere, I think, was yesterday. It was on a Sunday, and I'm hearing big things. I'm hearing some good things. People saying that it was amazing. So yeah, I'm a little pissed because we have to wait just that little bit longer. I guess I got a little too used to, like with the Marvel movies, they seem to come out like a week before they were coming out stateside, and I got a little too used to that. Because now I've got to wait, like, it's only a couple of days, like 2 days or whatever. But yeah, Americans, they get to see it from like Tuesday to Wednesday, I believe. But we don't get it until Thursday into Friday. So like a, Thursday midnight. A couple more days to wait. So I'm going to have to avoid all the comments and reviews that are going to be popping up over the week. But we'll be there opening night. It's a double bill with Man of Steel. So, cannot wait. But yeah, these are interesting. Like I say, like he said, they don't give you a lot, but they kind of set the tone and the mental state for each character and where they are when this movie begins. So I'm really I'm really curious now, real curious to see how this goes. So let me know, guys, how do you lot feel about this? Does this interest you, or was it just not enough? Were you wanting a bigger setup for what happens in Batman v Superman? But I think it's good because it just doesn't give too much away. Even though it's like it tells the story before, it doesn't really show you too much of what Batman was doing before, which I didn't really want to know too much of. So I'm happy. This whets your appetite. But yeah, let me know, guys. You there for opening night when it drops? Or you gonna wait a few days? Let me know, right? Comments down below. You like the video? Give me a thumbs up. Hit that like button. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Like, share, all that shit. I'm Eddie Reese, and this has been my first take to Comicstorians Batman v Superman prequel comics, like a whole series of them, like 5 that I did. Yeah, later people.